Hey there, happy Monday. We are now working on the beginning of week 5 of social isolation, and I have been slacking on getting these videos to you, but here is one on lenses like I promised. Sorry it's taken me so long to get here. I've been occupying myself with other things, most importantly running. I'm already up to 75 miles for the month and it's only the 13th. Been doing that a lot, and also been doing some collaboration videos on lighting for videos and stuff like that. So if you've watched those, thank you for joining. If you haven't, I've got them up on my YouTube channel, which you can find a link under my bio to that if you want to check them out. And I also, the live that I did on lighting, I put up on my blog, jamapantel.com, if you want to go read that. So just want to see if y'all are still doing okay. I hope y'all are. I'm an introvert. Isolation suits me just fine. It doesn't bother me all that much at all. But I know not everybody likes being alone like I do. So, I hope y'all are doing great. I hope y'all are staying healthy. I hope y'all are getting out and moving, getting some exercise. I know that totally helps my mental state. Without that, I'd be pretty lost. But otherwise, let's get started with lenses. So, as I've mentioned before, I am a Canon shooter. So I'll show you my lenses and what I use for that. So first off, there are different mounts for Canon cameras. If you go way back to the film day, and I've got my film camera sitting right there and probably should have grabbed it. They had FL and FD mounts on the film cameras back in the day, which I believe you can get an adapter to put them on your digital cameras now. But anyways, on the digital cameras, you have the EF lenses, which are what I use. They're for the full frame cameras, the full frame, Canon cameras. And then there's the EFS, which are for the crop sensor cameras, which I talked about briefly. So if you have an EFS lens, those go on the crop sensor cameras, and you have to remember for Canon to multiply it by 1.6, and that's actually what you get in the camera. The EF lenses can be used on the crop sensor cameras. However, the EFS lenses cannot be used on the full sensor cameras. And then nowadays with the mirrorless cameras that have come out, you've got EFM and RF. The EFM are for the older mirrorless cameras that came out, and the RF are for the new ones that are pretty fancy, that have just now started coming out more recently. So for Nikon, I believe their mounts are AF and AFS. AF for the full frame cameras and AFS for the crop sensor cameras on the Nikon side. Before that, I believe they used an F mount forever and ever and ever on all theirs. So a lot of their lenses are compatible, way more so than the Canon ones were. But like I said, I believe you can get adapters to put on there to make them use. But like the FD lenses on the old film cameras are autofocus. They're not manual, or I'm sorry, they're manual focus. You actually have to turn it and spin it in there, and there's like a little circle in the middle that has a line through it, and you have to line it up perfectly to focus it, versus all these new ones, the EF, EFS, and mirrorless cameras all have internal sensors where they'll do an autofocus. You can still put them on manual focus, but the autofocus works pretty great these days. So the different types of lenses there are, and I've talked about this before, there's prime lenses and there's zoom lenses. Then you've got your wide angle and your super zoom. So prime lenses are lenses that do not zoom. You have to be the zoom yourself and, walk backwards, forwards to move them around. However, the quality of them, they are ridiculously sharp, and I actually really, really love prime lenses. So the 50 millimeter, I would say, is the most common. That's what all the old film cameras usually had on them too, was 50 millimeter. And basically that's what the eye can see, the range the eye can see. And that's why it's such a standard lens. It's not necessarily my favorite, although I have one. And mine is a f1.2. So every lens that you have has your distance. So like I said, this is a 50 millimeter, what the eye can see, and then it has your f-stop, and that's how fast the lens is. So the 1.2 means it's really fast. It does really well in low light. You have that really, really shallow depth of field where you have sharp focus and then a lot of fade blur. off on that. And so then after that, I got the 35mm, which is a wider angle than the eye can see. I really like this lens. It's probably my second favorite and most used lens. It's a 1.4 f1.4, so it's super fast. It's ridiculously sharp. It focuses really fast. And it's just a really, really great lens. So if you follow me in my work and you've seen any of my like starry night sky pictures and stuff like that, this is usually the lens that I'm using. The images I photographed in deserted downtown Austin the other night, this is the lens I used for that. I use it pretty regularly for my landscape work. I love it when I travel, stuff like that. But I do still have a super wide angle zoom, and this is a 17-40. I don't like it all that much because it's not very fast. It's only an f4. But it's a pretty wide angle. So if you are photographing like a landscape and trying to get a huge view of something, I use this, and I've used it plenty, like in Hawaii, to get bays and Waimea Canyon and stuff like that, so you can get the vast views of that. So the thing to remember with wide angle is they distort the edges of a picture. Basically, I don't recommend you using it on people. If you put people on the outer edges of a wide angle lens, it really, really makes them wide, and it's not a flattering look. I know some portrait photographers do like that, like using this for certain effects in their portrait work. But if a person is on the bigger side, it's really going to make them big, and I don't recommend using it for portrait work. If you do have to use it for portrait work and you're trying to get like a landscape shot, you want to keep your subjects right in the middle of the field, your field of view in your camera. So there's not as much distortion. Like I said, the outsides are what's really distorted. In a lot of wide angle lenses, you can see things kind of bending in, if you will, on the side. And you can fix that in post some, but you'll still get some, like, a lot of leaning. Like if you take a picture of a building and you see it leaning on the side, that's generally from a wide angle, to make it look like it's leaning in. That's just the distortion of the camera. Like I said, the building's not actually leaning, but that's the downside with wide angle. You can get a lot in there, but it kind of distorts the edges and stuff like that. And then my personal favorite, I call it my workhorse, is my 70-200 zoom. It's really, really heavy, sturdy. You know, it's got different settings for how close and far you are from your subject. So this one's a 2.8, which is fast. You can get a 200 that's faster, but it's about $10,000 lens. This one's pricey enough as it is. So I have the one with the image stabilization, which I keep on pretty much all the time unless I have it on my tripod, which I do use this on my tripod quite a bit. It's so heavy. It's easier to work with it on a tripod. I've mentioned this before. If you're working with, you know, a super zoom like this and you're zoomed all the way out to 200, you want your shutter speed to at least match your f-stop at 1/200th of a second to keep it from blurring. But this image stabilization helps keep you a little stabler, so you might be able to go down to maybe 1/125th of a second. I can even handle it at 1/60th of a second, just because practice and I'm pretty steady, but I like keeping the image stabilization on when I'm hand holding it because it is so heavy. It helps prevent me from shaking. It doesn't stop the subject from moving and getting the blur. It prevents you, or helps stable you, the lens itself, from shaking, and that's what the image stabilization does. You can still get a blurry picture if they're moving too fast and you're at too slow a shutter speed. It's still going to blur the image. This is to stabilize you, or help you stabilize yourself. And in my live, I was asked about macro. I do not have a dedicated macro lens, simply because they're nice, they're fun toys. You can get into a lot of spending debt with all the toys with photography that are made available. I opted to go a different route, and I have macro filters, and you basically can screw them onto the front of your camera lens itself and turn it into a macro. So they come in different close-up range. This is a +10, which if you follow my work, if you go back maybe a couple of weeks, you'll see a a B in the blue bonnets. That's was done with this 10-time macro. I also have like a 2-time, a 3-time, and a 4-time, so they're not as close-up macro. I don't know what the proper term is, but this one really gets a lot of detail. The problem is I'm allergic to bees, and you have to be really close to it to do it. They don't freak me out, even though I am allergic and I could get really sick. I still got really close to the bee just to capture the picture. Anything for the picture, right? We're willing to sacrifice. But generally speaking, if I am tracking an insect, I will go with the other ones so you don't have to get as close to them. This is just what I happen to have on me, and my bag was really far away and I was too lazy to go get it. So I just worked with what I have, or worked with what I had on me, put this one on, and got really, really, really close to a bee and just hoped it didn't sting me, which it didn't, fortunately. Otherwise I would have swelled up really, really, really bad, and it would not have been pretty. So that's about all I can think about for lenses right now. There are plenty more across the spectrum. I have an 85 somewhere that I don't use all that much. It's a really, really good lens. It's not, I started using this one so much more, so I put the 85 away. The 85 is not an L series lens, which on the Canon line, that means it's a professional series lens. Faster focus, better built quality, stuff like that. However, if you are looking for an inexpensive L lens, Canon's got a 50 millimeter that's pretty fast. I think it's 1.8 that you can get for like under $100. And it's a great quality lens. You know, it's not as fast focusing as, say, the L series. The L series usually have the red rings around them for Canon. I forget what Nikon puts on their professional line. All the white lenses that you see for Canon are professional line lenses. Basically, they're sealed for weather protection and stuff like that. Like, I don't freak out if it's raining on me and they get a little bit of rain on them. They're sealed for that. I wouldn't stand out in a downpour in it and don't take them underwater, but I can, you know, usually get it away without the water messing up anything or ruining any of the internal parts and stuff like that. So they're weather sealed for that kind of stuff, makes them steady, stuff like that. So the other ones that are inexpensive are not weather sealed. So if you do have them out in the rain or something, they very well could get messed up with the water getting into the internal parts, and that's what, you know, moves around in there and stuff like that. My 85 was also relatively inexpensive. I want to say it's in the $300 price range. It's a very, very good lens. It's the only non-L series lens I have held on to for this long. I've kept it for a very long time. It's one of the first ones I've had. And there's a 200 L series prime lens that is relatively inexpensive too. And relatively, I'm talking about not in the $10,000 price range. I know price is subjective and everything else. You know, most of the professional lines start at about $1,500. So when I say less expensive, I mean, you know, under that price range. I believe the 200 L series standalone is below $1,000. It's a really, really, really sharp lens, great lens. And I like shooting at 200 for my families, for kids, stuff like that. It creates a really good compression and really blurs that background, which is what I am known for in my images and stuff. But this one just provides me more flexibility, because when you are chasing kids around, you have to be more flexible. So this one's 70 to 200, so I can zoom, you know, when they're running around, I can basically track them with this and get them a lot easier than, say, if I just had a 200 prime on there. However, if you're shooting like landscape or stuff like that, where you don't need, you know, things aren't moving, they're pretty still, the prime lenses are incredible. The 50s, the 85, the 35, the 200, all of them are, generally speaking, less expensive. But you have to change them out a lot more if you're going for different looks and stuff like that. So that's the downside to that, versus the convenience of a zoom, where you can get a range just by turning this instead of taking them off and replacing, you know, the lenses and stuff like that. I have no problem doing it, and I carry pretty much everything on me all the time. Adding an extra, I don't know, 20 pounds to me when I travel. I do it pretty regularly. I'm surprised my back hasn't given out on me yet. Taking applications for Sherpas, if anybody else wants to volunteer to Sherpa for me and carry my bag, which is always nice to have. So I think that's about all I've got to say about lenses. If you have any questions, let me know. You can shoot me a DM, leave questions here, and I'll get back to answering them for you. And if you have any questions about anything else, let me know. I'm going to attempt to get into posing for y'all at some point because this quarantine or social isolation stuff is not ending anytime soon. It'll be at least until the end of the month. Another thing I was thinking about doing, if anybody's interested, if you want to, call me on FaceTime or Zoom or something like that, and you want to walk through your house with me, I can show you areas where there's good light. If you are interested in taking some pictures of your own, of your kids or whatever else, I can, tell you exactly, hey, that's a good light place. That would be a good place to do it. Or if you're a business owner, small business owner yourself, and you're looking to take product images that you usually have resourced out to a photographer, if you're looking to do some yourself, I can help you find a good spot for that and help you with the setup on that as well. I've been hired to do some product work in this quarantine state, which is very nice for my business and has helped keep me shooting and working during all of this. But I'm just trying to find ways to help you guys with anything y'all may need. And if there's anything that I haven't thought of that you'd like, another thing I was thinking, if you take pictures yourself and you need help editing them, and you want me to help you edit them, if you don't have the capability, I have Lightroom and Photoshop, and am more than happy to help you edit a picture that you think is really great that you might want to be interested in printing. I'm all about printing your work, like you see my giant print behind me. That's a 40 by 60 canvas. I've got a 10-foot panoramic in the other room. I've got large prints everywhere. I love albums too. And I'll eventually talk about all those as well. So I think that's it for now. I will talk to you soon. Like I said, if you have any questions, just let me know. Talk to you soon. Bye.